my specs on and try and see you. Good morning. Following Mike's slick sides, you've got something of the local government slides coming up. So they're not going to be as slick, they're not going to be as colourful. But what I would say is there might be some information that you can glean from them. And what I'd like to start on is saying that we work in partnership with Sporting, and we work in partnership with a whole host of other organisations. But we are the voice to central government, such as the ministers and the Secretary of State, to take forward the concerns, and not just the concerns of the local authority or the local government association, but your concerns as well. I can't emphasise enough on that, because our concerns are your concerns, and without feeding that in, and I did mention, I've spoken this morning to a couple of people, don't wait until the maroons are up before you contact your local council. Work on shared visions, work on aspirations, talk before we start to get to the maroons going up and situations such as, okay, there's a diversion of paths that the local authority is going one way and you're trying to pull the other. It's better to work and trying to work from a common foundation. Anyway, having said that, and I've might get into my time a little bit, so not to worry. As I say, I'm pleased to be speaking here this morning on behalf of the Local Government Association, which has, in the past 12 months, seen the beginning of implementation of the Government and Sport England strategy. We've been involved in that. We've helped to shape it. And this is why it's important that we work in partnership with yourselves and with Y Sports, etc., because we need to have input. People get elected from all walks of life. Then they're suddenly put into a position whereby they have to make a decision. And sometimes, as you know, and I'm being quite frank and honest here, sometimes those people have little or no knowledge about where we need to be driving it. So that is why you need to feed in. That is why you need to make friends with your local authority, your executive or cabinet member involved in sport and activity and leisure. What I'd say is we've seen how investment in elite sport in the last 20 years has brought forward a vast amount of success. If you take the 2012 Olympics, for instance, we've had a success in the Paralympics. We've had success in the Olympics in London, and that was vastly emulated and surpassed in the 2016 Olympics. But it's not all about the elite sports, and it's not all about providing the facilities for those more talented. But as Mike said, and as Yvonne alluded to, we have to tackle inactivity. And what I'd say is that, if I can operate this, councils are still the biggest public sector investor, and I'll read that, you can read it. 1 billion, it's over 1 billion a year, it's about 1.2, I think, 1.2 billion a year, and that's on shrinking budgets. So when you think about that, these are the challenges facing the local authorities. When you think that, okay, they're going to cut down on this and cut down on that, they have to balance the books because there's pressures on social care for our young and our old, pressures on transport infrastructure, and many more things. I won't bore you by reeling off a list because I don't want to. I can't see you all, but what I don't want to do is find you waking up as I go and sit down. So I want to make sure that you stay with me. As I say, we represent over 370 local authorities throughout England and Wales, and that's the power that we have when we move to talking to central government. And as I said, we take part in helping to formulate with round table discussions the white papers on sport, culture, etc. We've had, as I said, 40 to 44% reduction in our income, our rate support grant, which comes directly down from central government. If you think of that and you think of a business trying to run on 44% less income, you would feel that those small companies will, and even larger companies will be squeezing down and probably going to the wall. And that's the pressure on local authorities. It's very difficult to maintain just the statutory services, and sport and leisure, unfortunately, don't come into those statutory services. But what you've got to realise, and as Mike pointed out and Yvonne, what we get if we don't put in at one end is an ailing population, more stress, more expense on the other end of the chain, which is health problems and even social exclusion. And it's very, very important we are an inclusive society. It's very, very important that not everyone's going to run a 4-minute mile, that's for sure. But people can participate. If you get people along to your local sports centres, to gatherings, to do walks, and if you like, formulators walks. On the Isle of Wight, where I come from, we have walking festivals where people go together and walk certain terrain, and we have a speed dating walk. We've had 2 marriages from that. And we've had a singing walk as well, where people go along and sing. We've had no X Factor winners from those. So, you know, we've had a mixed success in there. But as I say, to be quite honest, it's about engaging with our population, our residents. And it's, as I say, and I can't emphasise too much, I already have, but I'm going to re-emphasise until it gets home that we need you to assist us with actually engaging with our residents. We know the concerns locally, etc., but we need assistance. We're never going to do it on our own, that's for sure. And one wonders whether, with complete honesty, whether you would actually achieve on your own. So I think it's a collaboration that's coming together. I can only say that. And I'm looking at the clock as well. I'm optimistic because I know that local government and its partners can meet the challenges and can also reposition themselves to bring forward such offers. Councils and their local partners are leading in a step change in sport and physical activity participation. But we need to do more. I mean, Mike quite rightly said from the Sport England point of view, there are now 7 streams for funding from the 30 odd. That didn't come about overnight. We sat down with Sport England, we said, where can we direct our local communities and organisations to get funding, the correct funding, and instead of wasting time filling out applications and then getting them beaten back, where can we actually turn round and say to people, these are the pathways you go on? The more time taken on an application that's not back, the more shall we say, disappointment, and the more turning away from trying to reach your goal and if you like, fulfil those dreams. And that's wrong. So we've actually dealt with that, and as I say, let's see, move on. If you look at the bottom, and I'm not going to go down through them all, but if you look at the bottom, sport and physical activity participation rates still lower amongst certain groups. And as I said, that's about being exclusive and not being inclusive. And our society needs to be an inclusive society. It needs to seek the local understanding and the intelligence that we have locally to provide what we need to provide to encompass those groups. I really feel that that's very, very important. We need to do that by 101 ways, and you know as well as I do that we could list them. We could stay here all morning and brainstorm and put up those 101 or 1,001 activities, from park runs to, if you like, walking football and other such things. Here we are. The LGA works with Public Health England. Don't forget, the public health element of funding and responsibility was passed 2 years ago to local authorities, away from the NHS. And it gives us the opportunity to assist with directing funds to bring forward those activities which are preventative, inclusive, and positive for our communities. And as I say, with your help and with the help of Sport England and others, we can actually make things that much better, and we can utilise that funding so much better. How many times did you hear, going back a few years, that Public Health England just produced stats and no smoking campaigns, etc.? That's what it was about. Now we're changing the face of that, and hopefully you can assist with it. Councils, alongside county sports partnerships, also have an important leadership role to play in bringing schools, communities, voluntary sports clubs, national governing bodies of sport and health and private sector together. Do you want to touch on that? And Mike didn't, but you remember, just going back a while, last year, in fact, the new strategy from government actually said they were going to bring activity or sporting activity back into the classroom and down to the age of 5. That's wonderful. But when you look at things, we're talking active families. We're talking about active lives. We're talking about bringing families together. What better time to bring in being active than when you have a life-changing experience? You have a new addition to your family. I think that sport should be from cradle to grave. That's my opinion. I think that what we need to do is to look at when a family has a new addition, or just prior to that, when the GP is notified that there's a pregnancy, etc., we start to work with them. We start to work with them to create that culture. Because at that time is when lives can be just tweaked and changed into not just walking the baby, but actually, if you like, little gentle movement and exercises and things like that. And I think that's where we need to be. Councils up and down the country, and I'm reading this because I have to do this so I can encompass what LGA want me to put forward to you. Councils up and down the country are also using the localism agenda. I take it you all know about localism, devolution, and where we should be. Here we are. Devolution can develop opportunities for sport and physical activity. Yes, it can. Devolution is about bringing authorities, local councils together. It's about taking responsibility down from the central government down to a local level. It means that you don't need to have duplication. A sports centre over one side of the road and another sports centre just up round the corner. Things that can be brought together and make things that much more fit for purpose. Devolution can only work effectively if you and others meet and put forward your side of the story. We need to make sure that if we're going to go for devolution, we're going to get more responsibility down from central government. We need to know where we're going to drive this, and I think that's part of the deal. Only a couple of devolution deals have come forward with putting sport at the core, at the centre. Now that seems to me to be a little bit light. We need to have more. We need to make sure that devolution, while still developing, brings sport into the equation. Councils alongside county sports partnerships have an important leadership role to play in bringing in schools and communities with the voluntary sports clubs, etc., which no doubt you have access and relationships with, need to be at the forefront. As far as I'm concerned, I think that, you know, without labouring it too much, we have the devolution deals, we have the Localism Act that came in, once again, driving everything local. We need to take a handle on them. We need to move that forward. I've always said that we shouldn't be bringing the things forward at crisis time. We should be talking as we are today, and building those relationships is very important. So as I say, I won't slip down through all of this. I know that we're running a little bit late, but look at the second point up. Local government will support, with support from the sports sector, can help us to achieve this. I said we can't do it alone. The door's open as far as the Local Government Association. As I said, we've got about 370 plus organisations and councils that I represent. And that's apolitical. I can speak at this moment. I don't need to be like Mike and zip off because we're within PERDA. I'm speaking across the piece. I'm speaking for whatever, can I say, party political grouping there is. I speak on their behalf. And it runs across the Local Government Association. We do not have political groupings within fighting. We come up with the consensus of the way forward for our communities, and that's your communities. Looking down at the last bullet point there, create a nationwide culture of activity. And as I said, my own personal viewpoint on that is that we should be starting when we have a new addition in the family, or there's a possibility of new addition to the family. I think that is the time, and not the age of 5. I think that the earlier we get going on active families, the earlier we get going on active lives. And I think that what we need to do is pursue that. And that's the message I'm taking back to central government. That it's not about 5 when someone's just leaving preschool or going, you know, moving on to their first year in primary. We need to be in there prior to that, so that it's not looked on as a chore. It's looked on part of a way of life, and that is the culture of this country. And then we will see. A change. We won't have Mike coming in here with a load of statistics saying that we've got a lot of inactivity here, which we're trying to move on. It will already be a seamless way forward. I'd like to say, really, thank you. It's been boring, I know, but I hope you've gleaned some information, because I think that together, with these types of conferences, with meeting you, the town hall doors are open, the Local Government Association is there, we have our website. Down the bottom, that is the Culture, Tourism and Sport at Local Government that you can contact. We have people there who will speak with you and talk you through various scenarios, linking you with Sport England, linking you with Y Sports, linking with other local authorities. Don't wait until you hit a brick wall. Let's start to talk now. Let's start to talk where you want to be and where you want to go, and where our community wants to be and go. But let's say that it's not about sport and running a 4-minute mile, as I've said. It's about active families. It's getting a way of life and a culture within our families and our community and our population. That's across England and Wales. And I really think that. Thank you very much indeed.